right, and the Times this morning says the 217 million cedi financial loss case opening fights back, files suit against state for documents and witnesses. And GJ urged to push for laws to protect journalists. And then the police, we're told, has clamped down on sex workers at La here in Accra. The custodian says government earmarks $1 billion bond for projects. And the 2020 NDC race, Mahama caught JJ's support. Those are the stories on the custodian. But on 3FM, you also find 3 News. You also find a story. The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, has suspended its strike following government assurance of releasing funds to pay arrears of an additional 10,000 teachers by May 8th. The president of the association, Mr. NJ Kabunu, who made the known, cautioned the government to respect the payment schedule or risk thereof.
Present at the meeting were the leadership of NAGRAT, NAT, and the coalition of concerned teachers. Government was represented by the Ministers of Employment and Labour Relations and Deputy Minister of Finance, Abena Osei. Discussions spanned for over 3.5 hours, during which NAGRAT insisted all arrears of about 65,000 teachers be paid. According to government, 40 million cedis had already been released to pay 2,566 of them. The meeting had to be adjourned for 20 minutes. Both parties later agreed that some supplementary vouchers to be released by May 6 to pay an additional 10,000 teachers. Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafuewa, indicated strong commitment to respect the payment schedule.
This month, latest by 6th of May, 10,000 of those who are still owed arrears will be paid. I want to use this opportunity, given the good faith shown by all the stakeholders, to appeal to NAGRAT to call off their strike and go back to their classrooms and help in educating our children.
President of NAGRAT, NJ Kabonu, responded positively.
We are satisfied with the fact that at the end of this month, 10,000 or more will be processed, and that after that, a meeting will be held subsequently for us to discuss the payment schedule for other teachers. On this note, I call on all my members that the association is suspended its industrial action for now, and hope and pray that the commitment shown here is sustained.
Head of Condition of Service for the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, Ahina Kwakwashi, asked their members to wait till May 6.
They have validated 38,039, out of which 31,566 have been approved for payment. Again, after payment of April salary, they will pay some, and that will be about 10,000 and over.
So the 10,000 which will be paid at the end of...
That will also be a supplementary. It will go beyond the April salaries. So it will be paid in May, either a week or 2 after in May.
But would that be coming out of the 31,000?
Yeah, that will be coming out of the 31,000.
Earlier, the General Secretary of NAT, David Ofere Champon, had indicated that the audit service will release a list of those to be paid next month.
We had been brought back from IPPD 3, which at that time was the system used to paying the teachers, to IPPD 2. So there was no way Controller Accountant General could do the verification without extracting data from the disused IPPD 3 to compare with the figures, the numbers that had been brought by the audit service, to be able to arrive at a figure. So Controller was able to do that job by the 23rd of March, pulling the data of these 2,566 people, matching it against the list provided by audit service, and then writing to the Ministry of Finance on the 23rd of March and said that Ministry of Finance, generally these people are owed so much money. And the Ministry of Finance responded on the 29th and said that yes, pay them and charge it to the March salary of the GES staff.
Both parties have agreed to convene another meeting to discuss subsequent payment by the end of next month.
All right, so that's a story on TV3. We're starting a conversation this morning with that. My guest this morning, the Member of Parliament for the Lejukuku constituency, a member of the NPP, Dr. Benaduku Boy, is here. Good morning, Doc.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing great.
Oh, by His grace, I'm fine.
Thanks for joining us. And a member of the NDC's communication team, a legal practitioner, Mr. Abraham Amalba is also here. Good morning, too.
Bryce, good morning.
Hope you're doing great.
Except that the economy is hard, times are hard. The grassroots are crying, saying that the situation is becoming worse and worse and worse off. So majority of Ghanaians cannot wait for 2020 to see the back of this government.
Right, grateful for your time this morning. Now let's take a look at the NAGRAT issue on the strike. NAGRAT says that it is calling off, or it has called off the strike, but asking government to ensure that agreed schedules are strictly adhered to. Dr. Okubo, let me start the conversation with you. The bone of contention here is that the employer fails to agree to agreed time schedule for payments. Is this a show of bad faith from the employer, or the fact that the money is in there?
Yeah, right. Let me say a very good morning to all your viewers, especially to my brothers and sisters watching from the Legion constituency. Let me also say a very good morning to one of the most remarkable leaders we've had in the Fourth Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and to his very hard-working vice, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, a very faithful servant of this country, of the MPP, and to the leader himself, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Right, I have a letter here. Let me just start my presentation with just a brief read of the letter. Release of funds for the payment of salary arrears to Ghana Education Service employees for the period September 2012 to August 2016. Please refer to letter number, the reference dated 23rd March 2018 from the Controller and Accountant General on the above subject. You are hereby authorized to pay the salary arrears of 2,566 Ghana Education Service employees to the tune of 40,368,203. Now, the sum should be charged against the March 2018 salaries of the Ministry of Education per the Ministry of Finance General Warrant of salaries issued each month. Signed, it goes on and on, signed Honorable Abena Osei-Asare, Deputy Minister for Minister, copy, the Controller and Accountant General. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that there were things already in motion to try to settle some of these arrears. And guess what? The arrears start from, they've written September 2012 to August 2016. So this is not a government that had gone to sleep on some of these issues. And what is interesting is that in the past, most of the time when you see teachers agitating, threatening to go on strike, it's about the payment of their salaries or being brought on the payroll. But this time, it has nothing to do with salaries. It had to do with arrears that had to do with those who were promoted. And the difference had to be paid. It had to do with teachers who were moved, transferred, and they needed their transfer grants and all that. So all these, I mean, they deserve it. I mean, they've worked for it. They ought to get it. And the interesting part is that these were arrears that had accumulated from the previous government. And we are not making noise about it. We know that government is a continuum. I am making this reference, particular reference, because you had some of our brothers on the other side shouting, go ahead and pay them, you claim now there's agitation. But we are taking care of an inheritance, an unhealthy inheritance which it left us. And you see, NAGRAT calling off this strike is the strongest indication that the leadership of NAGRAT were hasty in their call for the strike. And let me prove it. You see, there were engagements between the ministry, the leaders of Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAGRAT, and other stakeholders, Controller and all that. And they had a plan to make sure that by the end of March, the release is done. Letters had been written to the effect of paying this 40 million. And it's just, when you are dealing with government bureaucracy, it takes some time for some of these letters to ultimately reflect in the hitting of the money in your accounts. And I listened to the leader of Ghana National Association of Teachers, and he said something very outstanding. Now, this is what he said. It was very revealing. He said they were not in a haste to go on strike because government had shown good faith by sitting down with them and showing them the roadmap. And apparently, there are over 60,000 plus teachers that ought to be dealt with. And looking at the amounts involved, they stakeholders, including the teachers themselves, admitted that government could not pay all within a month. So they were going to stagger it. So this 40 million is just the first of a series of payments that are supposed to follow. In all this, I am happy NAGRAT called on the strike. And that should tell you something. They themselves admit that government is committed to a roadmap. And this is a government that is not quick to condemn workers. I always say the valuable assets we have is that of the workers of this country who work hard to pay taxes that runs government. So we don't fault them. I'll only urge them that they should always sit with this government. This is a listening government. You might come to the bank's own, where some of the banks said the president should step in. As we speak now, I know he's met the banks. This is a president who is always willing to listen. The most important thing is that he will take decisions that will be in the interest of this country. We are not an obstinate, intransigent, stubborn government. The most important thing we look at is the interest of the nation. So I urge them to continue to talk to government. I also urge my government to make sure that we follow the plan so that the faith which the teachers have shown can be sustained.
If for instance, the letter you wrote, you read, suggested, signed by Madam Abnose Asari for the finance minister, and she was the same person who said that the strike by NAGRAT is illegal. Now, isn't it time, if indeed it was illegal, government takes steps to deal with these things, because this is not the end. Some teachers will be verified this month. At the end of this month, we're expecting to pay them. If indeed NAGRAT will go ahead to call for another strike when they know the processes have started or are in motion, why won't government deal with that problem?
You know, how do you call it? In court, I mean, he's best suited to make some of these comments. It's not every infraction which comes with a jail sentence or a fine. Sometimes you receive a caution. Sometimes you are warned and all that. The point I want to make is that they are called for strike. The funny thing is that I think the students were on a break when they announced the strike. It was supposed to hit hard when they resumed. So their call actually did not, how do you call it, affect negatively the calendar. But the point I want to make is that we need to, you should not be too engaged or how do you call it, occupied with punishing or showing that you have power. I mean, we should talk to each other. I mean, we should talk to you. We urge them not to be hasty in their call for strikes. At the same time, you try to let them know that you mean well as a government. And we want a calm, how do you call it, workers' front. We don't want agitations and all that. And when you are quick to sanction because somebody engaged in an illegality, the next time you also are unable to commit or do your part, they also, threaten to.
Okay, I'm grateful, Dr. Okubo. Honorable Maliba, so NAGRAT was in haste. The processes were ongoing to pay them, and yet they declared a strike. Is this becoming what workers have always used to get what they want? Declare a strike, and quickly government will step in to satisfy you?
Let me say good morning to your viewers. It is important to note that the MPP administration, when they were campaigning in 2016, gave a timeline by which they will pay these allowances. They said they were going to do that in their first year. Now, we know they are in their second year. They are going into their second year. And so anybody who said that the strike was hasty should go back and read, or read the assurance the MPP, then the opposition, gave to NAGRAT. And so if NAGRAT, at a point, felt that these assurances were not being met, NAGRAT has every right to go on strike, which is permissible under our law. And so to say that Angel Kabonu and his people were hasty is to show some ignorance on the basis upon which they went on the strike. It is based on the promises that the MPP gave them when they were in opposition. They did not call off their strike. I'm sure we are confusing some terminologies here. They suspended the strike. Right. And those in labor will tell you that these two terminologies are different. So suspension, and indeed, you heard the president indicate that in there's another tranche of workers whose salaries will be processed. Failure to do it, they'll kick in the strike again. I do not want the way and manner in which the MPP try to spin events. You've been forced to pay these monies, literally. You've been forced to pay these monies because the people threatened strike. If you were a listening government, you will not wait for the workers to go to the brink for you to now say that, okay, take this amount, the next will come. So don't try to spin. Don't try. You've been forced, literally, to pay these monies. And so you can't take the credit. A listening government, did he listen to the Deputy Minister of Finance, Madam Asare, who took a swipe at Angel Kabono for leading his group to stage a strike? If you are a listening government, you will not be insulting. We know the president insult all of us. He did that last week. And so there's a penchant on the part of this government and its operative to be insulting, people who are asking for their just desert. The education minister is noted for that. Once you criticize a policy, he will insult you. And so don't sit here and tell the people of this country that you are a listening government when indeed the outburst of the same deputy minister suggested that you were not happy with the strike that is going on. But I think that he rightly corrected himself. He sought to say that these allowances, these salary arrears dated as far back as 2012, trying to say that it is the NDC. Granted. But the NDC left you with some properties. We built new hospitals for you to take over. We built new schools. Never in the history of this country has a government left so many secondary schools yet to be occupied, fully furnished, for a successive government. So I think that if you are in government and things are not going on well, deal with the matter. Stop referring people back to the past, when indeed the people dealt with the past by voting for you. And so always going back, and everybody in the MPP does it. Even the president does it. You heard his speech. When he sought to say that, oh, they did not hide the agreement, and that the NDC hid the agreement with Gitmo 2. And yet, the same president was angry that, together with his information minister, was angry that the media got a leak of the information. If you were so transparent, why are you complaining about leaking the document to the media? That means you are not. And so I think that time has come for the MPP to begin to deal with the challenges of this country head on and stop making reference to the past. That is not what the people of this country voted for.
Right. Just a quick one. Yes, I was quiet the whole time. You see, sometimes our appetite for the partisan politics is so much that even when we realize that our opponent, that this time the MPP is being very professional and decent on its behavior or attitude with workers, we still want to find ways to criticize. Now we've gone to hospitals that were left. President Mama was born close to 60-something years ago. At the time he was born, he had access to hospitals. I want to make a point that the fact that the government builds health facilities does not mean that all went well. Even when you go to failed countries, failed states, hospitals are constructed. It's about structures you leave in place. It's about your deficits, assets compared to the liabilities you leave. And you see, what we must realize is that if you are part of a government that was unable to pay arrears accumulated to years, and you have another government which is taking steps to pay, the least you can do is to show some gratitude towards that government. And you see, I'm coming.
Dr. Kuba, is governance not?
No, I know.
Are you sure when this government leaves office, it will be able to have paid everything?
Right. But if you listen carefully, I started by saying that it's a continuum.
Right.
We have not complained. We are working towards paying it. Why? Because we know that you inherit and you continue.
Right.
But you have a member of the external government. They played a role. They were in charge. If they had paid, they had fulfilled their part, committed to helping teachers or doing what they have to do, we will not be where we are. So when you hear him saying that, go ahead and pay and don't complain and all that,
because you promised them to pay.
But that's what we are doing.
Yes, exactly.
That's what, and you see 60,000 plus teachers. If it costs about, let's say, 1 billion to pay them, you've been part of government before. You know government is concurrently engaging and paying a lot of things. Right. So you do it in a structured manner. And guess what? This is not the only arrears we are paying. Deficits, liabilities in the road sector, billions of cedis. Even soldiers, their allowances were hanging. We came to clear it. Grants in the north, the feeding, we came to clear it. 3.1 billion, 32 pension. Workers had agitated the whole time. Give us our 32 so that we manage it ourselves. The previous government, no, will not release. This government released. Look, so this is a government that is doing a lot of the things they relate on. And it is unfair to have been part of the same government that refused to pay these allowances. And then when you see a government that is committed to a roadmap, you go ahead and say that, go ahead and pay and all that. We are committed to paying, and we will make sure that teachers get in a state where they will be happy with how government treats them.
I'm grateful.
No, right. You see, just a small point. If you say that...
And just for, if you call a strike and within this, you withdraw it, whether suspend, called off or whatever, the strike is not emotion. Now, to call off a strike within this, it means there's a problem with the judgment. If it is sustained and it was very convincing, there's no way to have been called off.
But if government shows unwillingness to abide by agreed payment dates, how would you say that the strike is?
You see, we've had many instances in this country where a workers group has announced a strike, they call them to the table, and they refuse to suspend the strike. You know why? That is when there's almost nothing to show commitment on the part of government.
What is new here?
Yeah, what is new is that you have a group that calls a strike, and just at the time they go and sit with government within days, they say we've called on a strike. That is to show that.
So was government pushed to go and look for the money?
No, you don't get it. If government was now going to look for the money, they wouldn't have called on a strike. There was enough evidence to show that government was already on the way of committing. That's why they called on a strike. We've had many instances where groups refuse to call or suspend their strike while sitting with government because they are not convinced the government would commit itself to a roadmap or do what it's supposed to do. But this time, even before starting the process, they called on a strike. It means before the process, there was enough evidence on the table that government was way ahead.
I'm grateful.
I keep educating you and telling you that this program is supposed to educate those who are listening to us. They have suspended the strike, not call off. Use the right terminology.
And I said suspend or called off. It is not emotion. The strike is not emotion.
Now,
that's the most important
the point
thing
I want to make is that if elections are held today and the MPP loses power, are you sure that you will have been up to date with all payments?
That is not possible. That's not possible.
So don't
teachers who will pass out within a few months will be added on.
But if I leave a lot of debt, my attitude will not be like yours.
Would you make will let me talk?
Why not?
Learn from the way I keep quiet.
So you see,
I
can go the way you are going.
Let me talk. Can you let me talk?
You have to choose your
learn from me. You have been talking. I've been keeping quiet.
I just want us to
I just want you to understand that. I'm saying that I insist that learn from the way I am keeping quiet.
Dr. Kuboy,
and then you talk, and then we do it.
Dr. Kuboy,
the program is not for you only. The program is not for you only. I insist, learn from the way I keep quiet when you are talking. Now, the point is that if you know that it is not possible for a government to be up to date with all its payments, and then you come into government and you are being taxed to pay these monies, where has the NDC gone wrong?
But
For
his argument is that you
for
did
you-
not pay for all this number of years. That's why. That is his argument.
And I'm saying that you take both positive and negatives when you come into power. Now, why are they posting students to the E-blocks that were built? Why are they not saying that because they did not build it, they won't post students there? They are benefiting from the profits. In the next few days, they will be commissioning Terminal 3 at KIA. Why would they take credit for that? It's because the NDC had left something positive. It's not possible for a government to deal with all the challenges of this country before it leaves office. And that is what I want him to know. And so to always go back and make reference to the negatives when there are positives and you don't make reference to them is disingenuous. That's the point I want to land on.
All right, let's go to the finder. U.S.-Ghana defense deal requires a legislative instrument. That's according to Occupy Ghana. Now, it has charged government to present to Parliament an ally on the status, privileges, and immunities provided under the U.S. Defense Cooperation Agreement. According to Occupy Ghana, we do not think that Parliament's ratification of the agreement under Article 75 is a substitute for the requirement to pass an ally under Article 11.7 of the Constitution, the pressure group said in a statement. According to the think tank, Section 2 of the Diplomatic Immunities Act demands that the President may, by ally, make regulations extending any or all of the immunities and privileges conferred on diplomatic agents by virtue of this Diplomatic Immunities Act 1962, Act 148, to prescribed organizations and prescribed reps and officials subject to such conditions and limitations as may be prescribed. Now, Occupy Ghana draws attention to 2003 bilateral agreement between Ghana government and the government of the U.S. regarding the surrender of offenders to the International Criminal Court. Again, it refers to the Gitmo II agreement, which was only sent to Parliament for ratification after litigation and an order to do so by the court, and says that it believes that if required to be ratified by Parliament, should be assumed to be confidential, and therefore where confidentiality is genuinely required, we should ensure first such documents are formally given the requisite status under the State Secret Act 1962, Act 101. And it is simply urging the President to quickly put together an LI which must be placed before and passed by Parliament under Article 11 of the 1992 Constitution. That's the story carried by the finder. Honorable Amara, let me start this conversation with you. This issue is still lingering. Occupy Ghana is raising some red flags. According to the group, what Parliament has done isn't enough. We require an ally to back some privileges, some immunities that will be given to these U.S. soldiers. And they mentioned several acts under which this is indeed the reason why it has to be done. Did this escape Parliament?
From their statement, they are not suggesting that it has escaped Parliament. They want to point to certain add-ons that after this is what you should do. But you see, Occupy Ghana does not seem not to know the mood of this country yet on this matter. The mood of the country is that hold on to this agreement. Let's deal with the knotty issues before implementation. The mood of the country is renegotiate this agreement, and that this agreement was not only entered into with Ghana by the U.S. Other countries have also entered into similar agreements, and what has happened in those cases is that they have renegotiated and ensured that they've had the benefit of the agreement. And so Occupy Ghana seems to be jumping the gun. And I think that it is important to state that this imposition of a law, for me, is to say that, Mr. President, I'm from the US, take this agreement or leave it. And our president says, oh, I'll take it, without simply looking at the nitty-gritties of the agreement, how beneficial it will be to the people of this country. I am of the view that the call by well-meaning Ghanaians for the president to take a second look at the agreement must be listened to. And so what Occupy Ghana is talking about is, for me, jumping the gun. I'm not sure even if Occupy Ghana is aware that the mode of approval, the mode of ratification is even problematic under 75. The Constitution says that when the president enters into an agreement, it must be domesticated. It must be ratified by an act of parliament or by more than half of the parliament. Now, my understanding is that what happened on that day in parliament, the numbers were not sufficient enough to have this resolution passed. The numbers. The Constitution says it must be half of the parliamentarians voting for the resolution. But
to ratify a document.
To ratify it. But the numbers on that day were not. So 75 says that the president may execute or cause to be executed treaties, agreements, or conventions in the name of Ghana. A treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the president shall be subject to ratification by A, Act of Parliament, B, a resolution of Parliament supported by votes of more than 1/2 of all the members of Parliament. This requirement was not met. The numbers in there were not enough, and I'm happy that a citizen of this country has gone to court, particularly on the issue of these numbers as well. And so we'll see how the Supreme Court will deal with the matter. But from the readings here, I have not seen anywhere that it is talking about a legislative instrument, an LI. What I have seen here is the ratification is done in two ways, by an act of parliament or by a resolution of parliament. That whole document must be ratified in this way, by an act of parliament or by a resolution of parliament. We chose the second one. If Occupy Ghana is now talking about an LI, I don't see it here.
It is talking about a Diplomatic Immunities Act, that's 1962, and so that's a part of the Constitution. That's Occupy Ghana.
No, Diplomatic Immunities Act is not part of the Constitution. It's just an act of parliament, just like any act. The Constitution is the supreme law. So, right. So I think that they are rather jumping the gun. The mood of the country is not in this way yet to see how to implement the law, but so what they are suggesting now is how to implement the law.
Right.
That's not where we are now. The people of this country are not in the mood yet. What they are asking for is for the president to use his powers to renegotiate the deal, which will benefit the people of this country.
Right. Grateful. Dr. Kuboy, now, Occupy Ghana is suggesting that under an act passed in 1962, the Diplomatic Immunities Act, some of these privileges and immunities that will be granted to these soldiers who are coming would need to be backed by an ally. And so it is suggesting to the president to quickly send to Parliament that ally to be approved. The question is, if this is required, did it escape the effort to get this agreement approved?
You see, first of all, that diplomatic, how do you call it, the framework telling what diplomats enjoy in this country.
The Diplomatic Immunities Act.
Yes, it was signed, it was actually passed subsequent to the Vienna Convention when we became party to the convention. And when you become party to a convention, you must localize the law. Now, what it means is that from that time up to now, all diplomats who have been in this country, whatever they enjoy was in consonance with that particular act. So that it means, even in the absence of the ally, we've been a country that has operationalized this particular act for many years. I understand where
Occupy Ghana
is coming from. Now, they believe that when an ally is sort of brought to Parliament, it will now give specifications on the immunities and privileges that we are talking about, so that through that we can sort of try and get a deal which they think.
Now take a look at some clauses in the agreement.
Exactly. But you see, let me say clearly here that I've heard people who say that other agreements by the US with other countries appear to be better. They have better sections than ours. As we speak, no one has produced one agreement, US with any other country, which is significantly different from what we have. The one which was thrown at me at a particular program has come out to, to prove that it was between the UK and Kenya, not the US and Kenya. Number two, I've just heard on this platform that the numbers we had in Parliament to ratify the agreement was not up to 50+1. And I want to say that that is a total untruth. That is not the case. I was in the chamber that day. The majority, we are 169 MPs out of the 275. And we were there in our numbers to ratify the agreement. So that also is absolutely untrue.
You know of the exact number that...
I was in the chamber, and we were there in our numbers. Those who claim that we fell short of the numbers should go ahead and produce us with further and better particulars by stating the exact number.
But you do not know how many.
I was not the one who threw out or the first to say that we fell short of the number. I was hoping that those who are confident enough, although we're not in the chamber, to say that we fell short of the number, would have just gone ahead to do us the favor of giving us the numbers. I'm happy that it has been mentioned on this platform that we seek to educate. And I saw that as willfully miseducating and not educating, because I was right in the chamber. And we are...
Since you said you do not also have the numbers, but you can tell that the numbers were okay. Would it not be right for us to find out how many people
That's
were
why,
in there?
I mean, I'm not even a lawyer. I'm a physician.
So, yes.
Yes, but I've been meticulous enough to learn from the lawyers that it is he who alleges that must prove. I've not made reference because I was comfortable with what I experienced in chamber sitting right there. But those who claim that that was not the case, if they had given me a number that were 90, then I would have just cross-checked with the table to see whether it is true or not. But it's not enough. Now, let me also say that in this country, we've had agreement with the US, which allowed almost all the contents of the current agreement to be operational. We've had US fighter jets, US aircrafts take off from our soil at Kotoka here under the previous agreement. They have what they call an expeditionary reception facility, which housed only US aircraft right here, built by the US. The reason why people mention the Vienna Convention is that when initially this agreement came to the public light, people said, how can we allow US soldiers not to be touched by our laws? Are we that inferior? When most did not know that under Vienna Convention, when a diplomat falls foul, most of the time you let them the host country deal with them.
But in the other agreement, I mean, those who fell foul of the law could be dealt with by the laws of the two countries.
Yeah, in the other agreement,
in this agreement,
yes,
it is not.
In the other agreement, no U.S. soldier. We want the explicit provision and section. No U.S. soldier who came here before President Nana Akufo-Addo became president could be dealt or tried in our local courts. No U.S. soldier. They should quote the explicit provision.
But the agreement said they could be tried by the laws of the two countries.
Exactly. But you see,
but in this agreement, it says that they could only be tried by the laws of the United States.
They could
Is that not the different people?
That's why I'm saying that when someone deliberately gives you such a vague clause or section, what do you think? If you want them to be tried in Ghana, why do you say by the two countries? If in all occasions they opt for their country, you come and tell us that still you operated within the framework of the law. So the point I'm making is that there is no explicit provision in the previous agreements to make sure that US soldiers were tried here. People threw out exemptions also. Why are you exempting them? Why don't you check their instruments? They could come here with weapons. I gave an example somewhere. When Barack Obama came to this country, with former government appointees taking pictures with him at Cape Coast Castle, the helicopter he flew is a military helicopter. Which of them went to check the kind of artillery and things that were in the helicopter?
Were you there?
I want them to provide us.
You are assuming it was not.
I know for a fact. When Bill Clinton came to
Honorable Kobo.
But let me make a point.
Were you there? Or you are assuming that it was not checked?
You see, you are a journalist. It's not everything we say that we can give you the source. When Bill Clinton,
but you are suggesting that it was not checked. Were you there?
I am telling you that
it was not checked.
It was not checked. When Bill Clinton,
which means that you had knowledge about the processes then.
You see, you don't need to be in the heart of government to know what happens. And let me add the last one.
Right.
When Bill Clinton, please, senior, let me just conclude. Let me learn. When Bill Clinton came to this country, and we had a den led by President Rawlings, he came with his own aircraft. All the vehicles he used were released from the port. None of them, this country.
That one too, you were there.
I was in this country. We had information. So those who come to tell us that we have a new agreement should be bold enough to deal with us.
This obnoxious agreement should not be allowed to stay in the way it is.
I mean, he has just made. I'm trying to find if he was there, but he's not giving me any.
Yes,
he's only saying that he's assuming they were checked.
He is asking.
They were not checked.
Right. He's asking the question. He's asking the question that has any U.S. soldier been prosecuted? If they don't break the laws, how could they have been prosecuted?
Okay, all right.
The previous agreement said that they could be tried in Ghana or in the US. This one, they've ousted our jurisdiction. Do you even know that the agreement was not executed by the president? The president, who is a lawyer, knows Article 75 says that the agreement must be executed. The agreement went to Parliament without being executed.
Gentlemen, I'm
These are the people who are ruling this country.
I have to wrap up
These
the
are the
conversation.
people who are throwing this country into disarray.
Mr. Bahama Maliba is a member of the NDC's
A
communication
president
team.
who is a lawyer.
Dr. Bernardo
Not
Koboy
respecting the
is a member of
constitution
Parliament
this
for the Lejokugu constituency, a member of the NPP team. Stay with us here. There's more coming up.